And the first big thing I want to get to is that Duke made a statement, a major statement on Saturday against Michigan, and Michigan for the first time this season looked mortal. Now let's talk about that when it comes to the Wolverines, because Michigan entering Saturday was a team that looked like it was on a different level than anybody else in college basketball. And as we have been fortunate enough to obviously have the last couple of years, there was the early bracket reveal on CBS featuring, as of Saturday, what were the top 16 seeds as of Saturday in the NCAA tournament. The top 2 seeds were playing Saturday in Washington, D.C. Michigan before the game was 1, Duke was 2. But the Blue Devils usurped the Wolverines with their performance on Saturday night in Washington, D.C. And for the first time this season, we saw a Michigan team looked like it was getting pushed around, looked like it had more, obviously, flaws than maybe we initially thought. And I said this in studio on CBS Sports Network on Saturday night, and I'm going to say it again. Watching Michigan, it made me feel like in Rocky IV during the scene where Ivan Drago was just pounding Rocky Balboa into submission, and Rocky caught him with a hard right hook, and the Russian was cut. And that's what I felt like watching the game, because Duke dominated Michigan on the backboard 41-28. Going into the game, talking to coaches that have played Michigan this year, every coach said the same thing. You have to make 10 or more threes to have a chance to beat Michigan, because they take away everything you want to do offensively in the paint. Remember, Wisconsin had to make 15 threes to beat the Wolverines during, obviously, that epic game earlier this season in Ann Arbor on CBS. Duke made 6 threes, still won the game. Duke also, as expected, got a major game from Cam Boozer, the clear favorite to be the National Player of the Year. 18, 10 rebounds, 7 assists. But to me, we also saw another presence emerge for Duke. And I have talked ad nauseum about the fact that Isaiah Evans is the guy that has to play at an all-conference caliber level for Duke to have a chance to go back to the Final Four for the second straight year under Jon Scheyer. Now, all of a sudden, I think a different piece has emerged in addition to Evans. Duke, without question, needs Isaiah Evans' offense. But keeping Pat Gongba on the floor for Duke and allowing Duke to have he and Cam Boozer on the floor at the same time now, defensively on the backboards, makes a major difference for the Blue Devils. I looked up the numbers before I got on the air. Gongba in games this season where he plays 25 minutes or more is averaging 11.3 points, 6.2 rebounds, and just under 2 blocks. This is a guy right now who, again, was out of the lineup a couple of weeks ago with injury. To me, is a major key for the Blue Devils moving forward. And Duke, with that win, usurped Michigan on the 1 line, and now is in the pole position to be the top overall seed on Selection Sunday. That would mean the 1 seed in the East. That would mean first and second round games in Greenville, and that would mean Sweet 16 and Elite 8 games in Washington, D.C., where Duke obviously played Michigan on Saturday. Michigan did not get much from its backcourt. Michigan did not get much from Elliot Cadeau, who did not make his first field goal until a 3-point shot late in the game. And now we're starting to see, I think, a little bit more balance across the top of college basketball. And for me, watching Saturday, starting with the bracket reveal on CBS, then watching all the great games we had, and I'm going to obviously get into them throughout this show. Arizona going on the road to Houston. Obviously just major teams and brands playing. The epic finish in the UCLA-Illinois game between the Bruins and the Illini in overtime, where Donovan Dent went coast to coast like Tyus Edney in 1995. The sport that we have right now has never been better in all my years covering it on the national beat. And look, I am not the type of person to compare, obviously, different sports to one another because I only focus on college basketball. But from everything I gather and from everything that I hear from people who are not 100% immersed in college basketball, they have been more drawn in by the product this season than any other season in college basketball. The storylines are off the charts. The players are off the charts. This is the deepest freshman class that we have seen in my years covering the sport. And now the brands at the top of the sport are obviously headlined by the two teams we saw on Saturday night in D.C., Duke and Michigan. And look, I've said this before, I will say it again. We cannot take for granted the job that Jon Scheyer has done at Duke following Mike Krzyzewski. You can't take it for granted because in sports, you never want to be the guy that is going to follow the guy. It is not something, obviously, that has ever been an advantageous situation. Jon Scheyer had never been a head coach before he became the Duke head coach. I remember 5 years ago now, when I was in the bubble in Indianapolis, I was chasing the story because Jon Scheyer had his goals and aspirations set on being DePaul's head coach, and he couldn't get the DePaul job. Now, 5 years later, he's one of the faces of the sport. Duke is 25-2. Think about what this guy has done in his time as Duke's head coach. First year, wins the ACC tournament, loses in the NCAA tournament to Tennessee. Next year, Elite Eight. Last year, obviously, goes to the Final Four, has the tough loss against Houston. And now Duke, again, with a brand new team, is in position to go to the Final Four for the second year and have a chance to win a national championship. And I know, especially in this climate where resources mean everything, I know Duke is always going to be well-resourced. I know Duke is always going to have usually the best players, and Duke, for 2 straight years, has had the best player in college basketball. Last year with Cooper Flagg, this year with Cam Boozer. But with that said, you look at the players who comprised that lineup last year for Duke on the team that went to the Final Four. Tyrese Proctor's gone. Cooper Flagg is gone. Con Knippel's gone. Sion James is gone. Kamen Malawach is gone. So Jon Scheyer has had to replace 5 new starters from a Final Four team, and now is in the pole position to be the top overall seed on Selection Sunday. If we're going to make a case for Michigan's Dusty May, and if we're going to make a case for Arizona's Tommy Lloyd in the National Coach of the Year discussion, you have to also make a case for Jon Scheyer in being the National Coach of the Year. Now, here's something I want to add, because I was thinking about this before the show. All of those guys, Scheyer, May, Arizona, Tommy Lloyd, all of those guys are operating at programs where there have been great programs prior to their arrival. Jon Scheyer, as I talked about, replacing Mike Krzyzewski, a guy who won 5 national championships, a guy who from 86 to 94 went to 7 Final Fours in 9 seasons. One of the 3 best coaches of the modern era in college basketball. Michigan, obviously, with Dusty May, is obviously in a program where John Beilein went to 2 national title games, Steve Fisher went to 2 national title games, and obviously won a national championship, Steve Fisher did, in 1989. And Tommy Lloyd's also at a place where he won a national championship, or when Arizona won a national championship with Lute Olson in 97, and Arizona has went to the Final Four 4 times. And I'm going to get into Arizona later in the show. But why am I laying this all out? All 3 of those guys deserve to be on the list in the National Coach of the Year race. But if you're asking me now, who would I vote for still? I would give my vote to Fred Hoiberg. Because Nebraska is on track right now, and there's a lot of basketball to be played, and Nebraska still has to go to the West Coast to play USC and UCLA. But Fred Hoiberg has Nebraska in position to be a 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. Nebraska, as I have talked about ad nauseum on this show, has never won an NCAA tournament game, and that is likely set to change here in the next couple of weeks if Nebraska can maintain its seed and beat a double-digit seed in the round of 64. And I'm on the record, if that happens, if Nebraska wins a game in the NCAA tournament for the first time ever before the start of next season, I'm going to Lincoln. I'm going to put my credit card down at the bar, and I am going to treat for 1 hour Nebraska fans to their beverage and maybe an appetizer as well of choice.